Welcome to your weekly field service. This is Chaplain Stephen Roberts, and we've been going through the book of Esther, studying the hidden hand of God. We live in a day and age in which God's hand often seems hidden to us, and yet we feel helpless, exposed, vulnerable. We long for more than the nothingness that we're often living for. And so we study Esther. And last week we studied mighty King Xerxes as he paraded his power and pleasure before leaders throughout the known world at that time. In a sense, he was like an earthly god. And yet, the end of our passage last week, we see the spotlight shift to one of his wives, Queen Vashti. And that is where that portion of the passage ends. The spotlight is shifted. The king, with all the power and pleasure at his fingertips, all of a sudden is no longer in the spotlight. And this week, we're going to continue on that same theme, and we're going to see how power and pleasure were thwarted for the mightiest king, ruling over the mightiest kingdom in the known world at that time. So let's start now with Esther chapter 1, with verse 10. On the seventh day, when King Xerxes was in high spirits from wine, there's the pleasure, he commanded the 7 eunuchs who served him, Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Agbatha, Sethar, and Carcass, not easy is it, to bring before him Queen Vashti wearing her royal crown, in order to display her beauty to the people and nobles, for she was lovely to look at. That sounds pretty shady, doesn't it? But when the attendants delivered the king's command, Queen Vashti refused to come. Then the king became furious and burned with anger. He's been leading this celebration, King Xerxes has, with all this pleasure at his fingertips. He's letting everybody drink as much as they want. His one rule is that there's no rules. And here you have him ordering his wife to be paraded around like a piece of meat. And she refuses to be an object of pleasure for mighty King Xerxes or for all the people invited into his court. So, of course, he gets really angry. She has just killed the party. She is Buzz Killington for King Xerxes' party. And so he calls a council, verse 13. Since it was customary for the king to consult experts in matters of law and justice, he spoke with the wise men who understood the times and were closest to the king. Here we go again. Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Maris, Marsena, and Memucan, the 7 nobles of Persia and Media, who had special access to the king and were highest in the kingdom. Doesn't this just seem absurd to you? The way he has to call together his entire council because this one wife of his refused to be an object of his pleasure. He said to them, according to the law, what must be done to Queen Vashti? She has not obeyed the command of King Xerxes that the eunuchs have taken to her. It's now he needs an answer. Then Memucan replied in the presence of the king and the nobles, Queen Vashti has done wrong, not only against the king, but also against all the nobles and the peoples of all the provinces of King Xerxes. For the queen's conduct will become known to all the women, and so they will despise their husbands and say, King Xerxes commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. This very day the Persian and Median women of the nobility who have heard about the queen's conduct will respond to all the king's nobles in the same way. There will be no end of disrespect and discord. So apparently it's not just Xerxes' pleasure that was thwarted, but his power as well. His wife refused to be an object of pleasure, and all of a sudden, all the rulers and advisors are terrified that all the women throughout the kingdom of Persia, the mightiest kingdom of that time, are about to disrespect and thwart their husband's desires. I hope this tickles you as it tickles me. They are worried about women not respecting their husbands. They are worried about women going off the rails with their husbands. And so we continue. Obviously, it's a big problem. We don't want women, according to these rulers, according to these scribes and these advisors, we don't want our women to get too boisterous. Therefore, if it pleases the king, let him issue a royal decree and let it be written in the laws of Persia and Media, which cannot be repealed, that Vashti is never again to enter the presence of King Xerxes. Also, let the king give her royal position to someone else who is better than she. Then, when the king's edict is proclaimed throughout all his vast realms, all the women will respect their husbands, from the least to the greatest. I think it's a little naive. The king and his nobles were pleased with his advice, so the king did as Memucan proposed. He sent dispatches to all parts of the kingdom, to each province in its own script, and to each people in its own language, proclaiming in each people's tongue that every man should be ruler over his own household. This man who rules over the kingdoms, reaching out to every tribe and tongue with his earthly deity, is using his power to send out a message telling women to respect their husbands. Again, I hope you see the absurdity of this. One woman here has thwarted the power and the pleasure of the mightiest king, the mightiest human ruler in the known world at that time. This is the guy who oversaw the battle of the 300. And so let's look at the big picture for a second. The mightiest kingdom has just been brought to its knees by one seemingly insignificant woman, showing the vanity of human power, the vanity of human pleasure. I wonder for you if the world you have created for yourself is so easily destructible. What have you built your life upon? What is your earthly kingdom? How have you guarded yourself with power and pleasure? Where are the chinks in the armor? Is your kingdom, that personal kingdom that you have set up, really as safe as you thought? But even as we see all this, I wonder if this book is really not about King Xerxes or the great kingdom of Persia after all. Perhaps it's about a different kingdom, one that's not so easily thwarted, easily exposed. Maybe all earthly kingdoms both rise and fall. But what if there's another seemingly insignificant figure who not only can break earthly kingdoms, but build one that's safe, secure for his people for all time? Perhaps the story is about a different kingdom. So let's throw down here. Let's put Xerxes' kingdom to the test and yours as well, and consider if the kingdom of our God through Jesus Christ our Lord is even better. Next week, we continue with another woman who will again thwart the power and the pleasure and ambitions of powerful earthly rulers. Look forward to joining you next week. God bless you.